welcome back. This week we're talking about self-made mentalities. We're going to address how to deepen our relationships and live in harmony with people around us. So stay tuned. It's story time. This week's episode is entitled Living Single Undercover, and it's season 4, episode 20. In this episode, a new writer comes to Flava, and his name is Ty, played by Dwayne Martin. Ty is like this educated, well-rounded writer who has all these accolades, and everybody already knows him as being a really great writer. So when he comes to Flava, he's like smelling himself. He's a bit arrogant and a bit too arrogant for Khadijah's taste. So they kind of go head to head a couple times about him not necessarily working in conjunction with Khadijah, but kind of running around like he's the boss. And so Khadijah kind of has to put him in his place and let him know she's the owner of Flava, regardless of who hired him and all that jazz. And so he has to submit to her authority. I won't tell you about the whole episode, but I will tell you that this clip is towards the end when Ty's returning from jail after following a lead. Watch this clip.
Khadijah, I got some of your favorite coffee in my favorite mug for my favorite journalist.
Too bad your favorite journalist doesn't drink coffee. Well, look who made bail.
Sorry for cutting it so close, but Todd Bridges was on Cops. Check this out. Here's my story on disc. You can send it right to layout.
You know, before I fire you, I just have one question. Who the hell do you think you are?
Didn't you get a copy of my bio?
Look, work was being done here while you were in jail braiding some guy's hair.
Look, Khadijah, that cop that I pretended to hit, we go way back. See, I got locked up so that I can talk to Kirby's partner in crime who was locked up for shoplifting.
Well, how'd you get anything out of him?
I convinced him that Kirby was cutting him out of the profits. My man opened up like my grandfather's pants during Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, good. Add a couple of your quotes and it'll make our article that much better.
Wait a minute, what do you mean, our article? I told you, Ty Richardson don't share no bylines.
Fine, I'll take your name off altogether.
Do we always have to go at it like this?
Not if you give in.
All right. Why don't we get started on our story?
I decide when we get started. Okay, let's start.
So as you can see in that clip, Khadijah had a bit of a time trying to get Ty to understand that although he was a great writer and she was happy to have him at Flava, he wasn't the boss, right? She was still in control. She was the owner of the magazine, and he would have to learn how to work as a team. So they actually write that article together despite his disgruntled attitude towards having to share the credit for the article. What we're going to talk about today is this idea of being self-made. And the idea of being self-made has been floating around for years, right? Rappers use it. Athletes and everyday people will claim to be self-made, right? That they got to where they are because of their efforts, right? And their independence. To a certain extent, we all can sympathize with that ideology, right? We can all say that, yes, I've had to work hard. I've had to apply myself to get where I am. I had to do that. But there's also like this invisible ring that encloses you within a community. Sometimes it doesn't feel like the actions within the community are explicitly helping you. There is some indirect support that you're receiving from the community you live within, whether that be like your parents or your family members or friends of the family or educators or anybody, religious community leaders, anyone can help create that system or that environment that helps support you. So the idea of being self-made can be debated, right? Because there's all these other people who have contributed to your life, even if it was in an indirect way. But again, to a certain extent, we all can agree that we've had to take charge over our behaviors or our actions or take advantage of opportunities that have come into our lives to actually make our lives work for us in the way that we want them to. We've all had to do that at some point. Even when considering that, there's a line that's drawn between self-preservation and individualism. And I think that line is where we want to sit today. We want to address the attitudes that can possibly isolate you from other people. And Ty is a great example of that. Like, he thought he was a great writer on his own, and he didn't need the assistance of Khadijah or anyone else to help him get his job done, right? He was willing to go to jail. It was all a ploy to get the story done. But still, he needed those people to help him in order to get the story done. So even in being an achiever and being an exceptional writer, you're only as good as your source, right? You're only as good as the people who can help you get the information that you need to write the story. We want to look at how we can be our best selves, but do that in community, right? Do that in a way where we're giving back to the people around us, where there's an exchange of not only information and existence, but just living in harmony with one another is what we really want to strive to do. And last week I wrote a blog post about loneliness and discussed how we can relieve ourselves from living in unwanted solitude. And some of us find ourselves going day to day without having meaningful connections or conversations with people around us, and we find ourselves like lacking something. I really encourage you to read it because I think it'll be helpful if you're one of those people who struggles to actually find meaningful connections in your life and you find yourself lonely at times. Read this blog post. It'll definitely help you. I want you to read that blog post, but I'll also give you a hint in this video. You can't overcome feelings of loneliness if you aren't willing to interact with the people around you. Whether that be at work or at church or a yoga class, you have to find ways to engage with the people you already see day to day, right? Because if you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to them, they're not my type of people, that's okay. Like, you can find a group that works for you, but at the same time, there's this period of time where you aren't engaging because you're telling yourself, I'm looking for the perfect person, right? I'm looking for the perfect group where I feel like I fit in, where we really connect and it's effortless. And the reality is that group might never come. We have to work on relationships. We have to work at relationships. And until you can do that with the people who are around you every day on a daily basis, it'll be difficult for you to find someone brand new and connect with in that kind of way. And don't think I'm attacking people who say they're self-made. I'm not. I completely understand the thought. I consider myself to be self-taught. I own a design company and I've never taken a design course. I've never gone to school for graphic design or interior design. So I have no formal training in it. But I picked up things along the way. I actually released a blog post on my designing site that talks about watching HGTV with my mother and learning little things from watching it with her, and then seeing how she could set up a home or clean or renovate something and make a new piece of furniture out of something that was old and used and worn out, and it became like a new item in our house. It took on a whole new life once she renovated it, or once she reupholstered it or refinished it. Like, I saw that growing up, and so somewhere along the way it planted a seed in me that made me want to pursue interior design in that way. And then graphic design was just something I kind of stumbled upon. If I couldn't go to school to learn about it because I was on this other career path, then I had to teach myself. So I appreciate the thought of being self-taught. I'm definitely one of those people. I've gotten very far by learning things on my own. Sometimes you have to learn things on your own. And there are all these ways of getting information without necessarily enrolling in a course or having someone teach you. But to that same point, you have to recognize that there's still someone who's showing you, right? Even in a YouTube video. And so although I'm self-taught, like, I paid attention, I learned how to do it from watching other people, I still have to acknowledge that those other people helped me learn how to do it, right? So there's always this combination deal going on when you talk about being self-taught or self-made. And I recognize that. We all have a desire to succeed and do well and make something out of our lives. And whether or not we realize it, that puts a bit of pressure on us to get it right, to figure it out on our own and get things done. And that can be overwhelming. It can be extremely frustrating when you have all of these opportunities and you don't necessarily have the skills behind them. So what do? You teach yourself, right? You research it. You figure out how you can make up for whatever you're lacking, and then you apply. You get the skills, you figure out how to get it done, and then you apply what you learned. And that's how we all survive. And take advantage of opportunities in our lives. Along with teaching yourself how to do things, sometimes we look up and we find that we've been alone. I think some of the most isolating jobs can be being a researcher, a driver, a designer, or a writer. And although we have a passion for these careers and we're committed to doing it, we recognize that there's a sense of loneliness that comes with that job. And so unless we intentionally seek out ways to be around people, when we're not writing or we're not designing or we're not driving or researching, then we kind of lose touch with the people around us. And we don't want to do that because that can have effects later on that we don't even realize are taking place during that. So it's just a great preventive measure to make sure that you're staying connected to the people around you and that you're fulfilling yourself in that way as well. And I know some of you are thinking, why does this even matter? What's the benefit of being in a relationship with people around you if they're not your family or your significant other? And the answer to that is simple, although it might not be satisfying for you. The benefits are, one, you can use that encounter or that experience with whoever you're meeting or speaking with to influence your work. For example, if I'm a writer and I meet someone with this spectacular story, I can get their approval to use their story in my work. And I just ran into them at a coffee shop, right? If I'm running to get a cup of coffee and I happen to talk to the barista and she's telling me about her journey in acting or whatever, and so she has this really spectacular story that she begins to tell me, then I can use that in my writing. It becomes a tool and I can use it to benefit my work. The second benefit is what I see as most significant, because there's an exchange that happens in everyday encounters that has this implicit reaction on us. During an exchange, you can find meaning in your life through hearing someone else's story, right? Or even saying your story out loud. Sometimes we experience things and we just experience them and keep on moving, right? This great thing happened to me, but now I gotta go do this. And so I don't really have time to reflect on or acknowledge all the great things that have happened to me. But when I have to talk about my life to someone else, I'm able to play those things back. It's an instant replay of my story. And so I experience it in a different way, and it brings meaning to my life and allows me to actually acknowledge and celebrate my own story. And when I'm hearing someone else's story, I have the opportunity to do that as well. I can celebrate them and give them something from my story. We can have this exchange where they feel fulfilled and I feel fulfilled, and we've had this beautiful jam session, right? We've made music together, the music of our lives, right? The music of our stories. And that does something for us that's healing and that is ministering on a whole nother level. And sometimes we don't even know. One of my favorite passages is 1 John 4:12. And it says, "No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us." And what that says so sweetly is that when I look at you, I see the face of God. And when you look at me, I hope you see the face of God. And somewhere in me looking at you and you looking at me, healing takes place. Because I can't see God, right? God isn't here in front of me. But if I see the person who I see every day, I'm seeing some part of God, right? You're a reflection. If we were created in God's image, then we look something like God. And God kind of looked good, from where I'm standing. So there's healing that happens from seeing one another and being seen. And once we appreciate that and we acknowledge that, it can have a transformative reaction. We can transform our lives. We can transform the lives of people around us and offer a healing that we never encounter. And that healing is actually the purpose in us communing with one another, right? As often as you do this in remembrance of me, it's an action that sets us up to see one another, to see God in one another, and to allow that to unify us. And it brings healing in ways that we can't find in our jobs or in our solitude. So again, just to recap, it's okay to be independent. That's actually healthy when we're looking at development, but don't get it twisted. We need each other. We need to be in relationship with one another. We need to be able to exist and contribute to the existence and experience of people around us because it's important. And it's what we were created to do, to live in harmony with one another. There are people who struggle with social anxiety, so they have difficulty interacting with other people in intimate ways. And for those people, there are ways for you to start to get your feet wet, right? You seek out the help that you need to help make positive changes that lead you towards connecting with people around you. It might be helpful to start with less intrusive ways of engaging with other people. For example, if I can do better in intimate settings where there's only like 4 or 5 people that I have to talk to, then maybe joining a book club is my best option for making meaningful relationships and connecting with other people. If intimate settings give me more anxiety, and I can do better if I'm like in a group of people and I can kind of get lost but still connect with the people right around me, then maybe joining a gym fitness group would be helpful. Then you have this large group of probably like 25 people who are all working out together, so we're all trying to achieve this one goal of finishing the session, and yet I still have this like immediate group right around me who I'm able to lean on or connect with, and we can joke about how we tired of doing these sit-ups, honey, how the crunches are not fun, but we can find ways to connect like that. And if you struggle with social anxiety and reading social cues, one great way to approach it is thinking of it as a game. Even though I have to talk to this person or I have to accomplish this task with this other person who has a strong personality, if I think of it kind of like chess, then I might be less anxious when approaching the situation. And I found that to really help me, especially with public speaking. That's one thing, like, you get a lot of energy in the room when you're the presenter. And so unless you can channel or internalize that energy in a way that it gives you life and doesn't make you anxious, you just become really overwhelmed by it. So if you can approach it as a game where you're going to do something and then they're going to do something, chess is a great example of life. Like, the symbolism is endless when you think about a chess game and living in relationship with other people, right? We always have to anticipate. Even defensive driving is like anticipating what the other driver will do, anticipating what the other player will do on the chessboard. And so if you can channel your interactions with other people like a game of chess, or just another game that you like where you have to be cognizant of what the other person is going to do or what the other person's intentions might be, then that might give you less anxiety when interacting with other people. Don't overwhelm yourself. Take small steps to figure out what best suits you and what environment of sharing works for you. Then commit to trying it. Even if it's uncomfortable, like the first 5 times you do it, go again one more time, and maybe that time you'll figure out how to navigate it because you've got all of this experience to pull on, right? You've gone 5 times, so you know what's gone wrong those 5 times or what you could anticipate other people doing. You feel a little bit more in control. So give it a chance, even if it doesn't feel right. And also seek out the help that you need in conjunction with trying things out on your own. And you want to get the help you need so you can make sure that these experiences aren't triggering you or sending you into an unhealthy mental state. Challenge yourself to become connected with healthy people around you. It's so helpful, it's so empowering, it's meaningful in ways that you can't even begin to realize until you try it for yourself. I chose the final part of this series to be about connectedness because I recognize that it's very difficult to explain the value in being connected to other people when individuals already have so many barriers that keep them from relating or connecting. It's good to use part 1 and part 2 to help you understand how to chip away at the barriers that keep you from experiencing a fulfilled life. If you can commit to exercises that encourage self-improvement, I know that you will start to see a change in your life and feel like a better person, have more meaningful relationships, and just excel in every area of your life. So, thank you for joining in this 3-part series on Living Single. I hope one of these videos helped you better understand yourself and your way of being, and you're committed to improving yourself and working towards becoming your best self and living your best life. Thank you so much. Join me again next week. Later, y'all. Hey y'all, this series is just the beginning. Every week I'll release new videos that help us approach spiritual and lifestyle changes that we want to make to become healthier and more positive human beings. So meet me back here every Sunday at 7 p.m. for new videos, and we'll continue writing our stories together. Take care, y'all.